Let me give you some background. I'm a 28-year-old guy and my wife is 26. We got married 3 years ago and we've been together for a total of 6 years. When we first met, I was already in my 3rd year of college, studying for a specific job in the productive and lucrative oil industry. It's kind of like the US Army, where you have a job that sends you to different countries. I would go to these places for several months to work on extra risky tasks, which paid well because of the danger involved, and then I'd return home for a few months. In the beginning, I would go away for extended periods, like 6, 8, or even 10 months, to advance in my career as quickly as possible. This allowed me to earn an average income for 4 years, in my country, in just 3 months. It's a demanding job, and I work extremely hard, but I love it. During this time, my wife was supportive, even though I knew it was tough for her to live this kind of lifestyle. I always tried to make up for my time away by spoiling her with gifts and arranging luxurious trips to exotic places. 2 years ago, during the global pandemic, I tried to return home after a long contract. Unfortunately, due to border closures, I ended up having to stay away for an extra 2 months. When I finally got back home, the reunion didn't go as expected. She told me she couldn't handle it anymore. Being alone at home with nothing to do during my absences was driving her crazy. She had also lost her job and didn't feel like working again because of it. Since I was making good money and wanted to see her happy, I fully supported her. Money wasn't a problem for us. Her happiness meant more to me than anything. I have to admit, I was also anxious. The whole situation seemed like she wanted to break up, but I was mistaken. She didn't. Instead, she expressed her love for me and her desire to have a baby and take care of it for me. She sweetly said, "If I have your baby, I can have a part of you with me when you're away on contracts." We decided to go for it. I had just returned from a 5-month trip without my wife, so trying multiple times a day was no problem for me. However, during the first month of trying, I started feeling increasingly anxious. Did this mean we couldn't conceive? I remembered that we hadn't used protection for over 4 years, with me always pulling out, and she had never gotten pregnant. But my insecurity disappeared one morning when she woke me up with a long kiss and a smile. She showed me a positive pregnancy test result. I was overjoyed. Everything changed. I felt like a real man. I was going to be a father, and it made me feel on top of the world. We attended every doctor's appointment together and cherished every moment. Even when I was on a project abroad, I stayed updated with pictures and ultrasound images. The pregnancy had no complications and the labor went smoothly. Everything went as planned and our family was on cloud 9. A month later, while I was on another contract working to provide for our baby, I received a text from my wife that plunged me into a deep and dark depression. It contained 4 simple words. I want a divorce. I couldn't comprehend it. We were a loving family doing well, and I was doing everything I could to support us. I tried calling her immediately to find out what was wrong, or worse, if something terrible had happened. However, she didn't answer any calls or texts after dropping this bombshell on me. My mind was consumed by the situation at home. I urgently requested my company to send me back. It was approved, but it would take a few days. While I was preparing to return, I received a message from her. We exchanged messages for a few days, and she avoided the topic before finally explaining her text. I want a divorce, so I can marry the love of my life. The love of her life? Who was this woman? All I knew for certain was that I needed to get home as soon as possible. Back in my homeland, I rushed home, only to find silence. It hit me then. Nobody was home. The baby was gone, and she was nowhere to be found. 2 weeks later, I was in court to finalize the divorce. During this process, I discovered that she had been in a relationship for over 4 years. This love of her life had been a part of her life all along. She intended to marry him once the divorce was settled. I won't go into the details of my country's laws, but I knew my top priority was to hire a skilled lawyer. My wife, on the other hand, didn't seem as concerned and chose a cheaper lawyer. She often spoke without legal counsel. Her story went something like this. It's true, I'm guilty of love and I'm a woman. This man is never home. He is never there. In my country, the law tends to favor women, but cheating is considered a breach of contract. Due to our marriage, she was the one at fault. She asked the judge for full custody of our child so that I would have to pay child support. I want to emphasize it this way. I wasn't going to allow that to happen. After consulting with my lawyer and an accountant, it appeared that I would only have to pay child support based on my base salary. My bonuses won't be considered as per the law. Those earnings are connected to the risks I take with my life. Therefore, the bonuses belong solely to me. Additionally, the company pays fewer taxes on bonuses related to hazardous tasks. So, my base salary accounted for about 10% of my total income. When she realized that she wouldn't receive much worth fighting for, I offered her the option of taking full custody of our child, with a no-contact rule. In addition, I promised never to request child support from her. She readily agreed, without any hesitation. As a mother, she relinquished any claim to the child, essentially agreeing to remove herself from our lives. Consequently, we were able to amend the child's birth certificate with me listed as the father and a blank space for the mother. During the trial, her lover was called as a witness, and surprisingly, he accepted. He's like a knockoff version of Andrew Tate, trying hard to portray himself as an alpha man. However, all I could see was him mistreating her, which seemed to excite her. He earns a decent income from a small company, significantly less than my salary, but still quite substantial for our country. Here's the catch. He's always at home. During the trial, he openly admitted to having cheated on me for 3 consecutive years. He even claimed that the baby was really his. He was convinced of this because he knew that she had manipulated me into wanting a child and believing it was mine, all to prevent me from discovering her infidelity. He acknowledged his awareness of our marriage and the fact that he knowingly played a role in ruining it. Essentially, he confessed to causing the breakdown of our lawful relationship, which, according to my lawyer's explanation, is punishable by law or something along those lines. The only reason he made this statement was to attack me and make me feel awful, which didn't benefit their case. It made it worse. At this point, the child custody situation had already been settled, and we had signed an agreement. However, it wasn't completely resolved. The judge directly asked my wife if she knew the child was her lover's. She was absolutely certain, so the judge ordered a DNA test for confirmation. We decided that the agreement wouldn't be considered final until we had the DNA test results. If the child turned out to be theirs, I could cancel the agreement and address the situation differently since the child wouldn't be biologically mine. When the DNA results came in, we returned to court to discuss the terms of the agreement. The judge reviewed the DNA results, which confirmed that the child was biologically theirs. Based on this, the judge allowed me to cancel the agreement and handle the situation with my wife differently since I wasn't the biological father. I responded by saying, "No, Your Honor, this child is mine, and I want to keep him." The judge was momentarily surprised, but then stated, "Well, if the agreement is a valid contract, and since you don't want to void it, then, sir, you are the father, and no one can take that child away from you. In my country, it doesn't matter who the biological parent is. What matters is who is documented as the parent." Since he knew he was the father from the beginning and didn't come to the hospital to acknowledge it, he automatically gave up all paternal rights. It might sound strange, but it's done to preserve the concept of a family. If a man recognizes a fatherless child at the hospital, it can lead to complications. He shouldn't worry about the biological father returning to protect the family's value and integrity. With the divorce settled, I had custody of my child and my unfaithful wife was out of my life. The first thing I did was hire 3 babysitters to provide round-the-clock care for my child, ensuring he always had someone with him. Not so I could go back to work, but to free up my time for what came next, planning my revenge. I initiated 2 separate companies with the assistance of an online virtual assistant from India. They offer cost-effective services and can handle various tasks online. One of these companies specialized in industrial credits, providing loans to businesses at rates lower than those offered by banks. The second company was strategically located in the same city as my ex-wife's lover. Both businesses were created solely to target this one client. My virtual assistant began inundating him with ads for my credit company, using targeted emails, Google ads, Facebook ads, and more. I was confident he would recognize that this was the place to secure substantial loans at favorable rates if he ever needed money. Next, I launched an extensive advertising campaign for the second company. However, this business had limited resources, rented space, and only one employee, the cleaning lady. Every time someone called for the company's services, they received an automatic rejection message claiming we were fully booked. I could see the phone numbers of those who inquired, and my ex's lover was among them, repeatedly. He became increasingly frustrated each time his requests were declined. likely because he realized the level of competition he faced. Now it was time to set the trap. My company faced issues in the primary country, and I honestly couldn't recall where that company was registered. They altered the management and aimed to sell off some assets due to this. Consequently, the regional manager intended to offload some of the equipment. Upon hearing this, he began reaching out through calls and emails, expressing his interest in purchasing the equipment. The response went something like this: "We're an international company, so we can't sell the brand, but we're open to selling certain equipment. Selling the company without revealing the accountant's data, which was essentially empty, would be illegal." However, selling the equipment was perfectly legal and could be accomplished with a straightforward contract. He didn't really want the equipment. He just wanted the competition gone from his city. So the manager made him an offer. "If you buy our equipment for, let's say, 3 times the price, we can include in the contract that we'll cease our business activities in this city." Within just 2 hours, my first company was inundated with calls and emails requesting credit for specific equipment. I knew he was running low on funds because he had spent a significant amount on his upcoming wedding with my ex-wife. I sent him the contract, and based on our credit evaluation, the equipment didn't actually merit that price. Consequently, he would need to provide a guarantee, his company. Moreover, he was prohibited from selling any equipment or parts of his company until he repaid the entire amount. If he fell behind on payments for 6 consecutive months, I would assume ownership. The contract also stipulated that the credit company would directly purchase the equipment. Essentially, I was paying myself, and I ensured every word of the agreement was legal and enticing enough for him to accept it. Later that same day, he sent back the signed contract. Typically, he should have the means to cover everything, even if the clients he anticipated from this company never materialize. Even if he devotes around 80% of his company's income to me for the next 5 years, he should still manage. Let's fast forward a bit. On their wedding day, during the reception, I went to present them with an envelope. In our country, it's customary to gift money in envelopes as a wedding present to assist the newlywed couple. When he spotted me with the envelope, he didn't seem upset at all. Instead, he started laughing, telling me to leave because I wasn't invited, and they certainly didn't need my money. I smiled in response and urged him to open the envelope. He took the envelope, glanced inside, and then stared directly into my eyes. He laughed again and inquired about its contents. With a broad Hollywood-style smile, I replied, "I'll see you in court next week. Enjoy your wedding night." Now, I'm sure you're eager to know what was inside that envelope. I won't keep you in suspense for too long. I'm suing him for child support. As I mentioned earlier, in my country, if you're aware that you have a child and refuse to go to the hospital to acknowledge paternity, you're no longer considered the legal father but are still obliged to pay child support. But there's more to it. When you knowingly attempt to evade your responsibility, it's legally seen as akin to fleeing the scene of a car accident, so child support payments are set at a higher rate. Initially, he refused to pay anything during the first custody trial. He put on quite a dramatic show, pretending he wanted the child or joint custody because he's the biological father. At that juncture, I knew I would take on the responsibility of caring for my child. However, while springing the decision to keep the child as mine upon them was quite satisfying, dragging out the trial and depleting his finances was a significant bonus. Protracting the legal proceedings provided the opportunity to gather DNA evidence confirming his biological fatherhood and capture his self-incriminating statements. So, during the child support trial, all the judge needed to do was review the statements from the first trial. The judge swiftly concluded the trial with a decision that stung. She ordered him to pay 40% of his income, including what he earns from his company. This payment was to cover the period from the child's birth until they finish college or until I get married. Guess who couldn't meet those payments? And guess who is now the proud owner of his company? Nowadays, I don't work in the traditional sense. I simply manage his former company and spend nearly all my time with my child. I'd like to address some questions that many people have had. Numerous folks asked about the child and the fact that I'm not the biological father. I have no intention of keeping this from my child. We'll have a conversation when the right time comes, most likely during high school or thereabouts. Until then, I'll strive to be the best friend and fatherly figure I can be. I have no objections if my child chooses to connect with the biological father. There was a comment about deceiving the child into forming a bond. Understand, I need this child more than you might realize. Given all that has transpired, I'm not interested in pursuing a romantic relationship at this time. I'm lonely, and being financially secure has given me no greater purpose in life than looking after my child. The repercussions were for my cheating ex-wife, who committed paternity fraud, and the guy who knowingly participated. They faced consequences, not the innocent child. I'm not one for drama, but I'm still in contact with him. If he's even a day late with child support, I have my lawyer ready to act. If you believe I don't have the best interests of my child at heart, I couldn't care less. I take care of myself and my child. If you're the one struggling with that, perhaps you're the problem.
All right, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive in.
Story 2. I had to share an astonishing experience involving a woman and her talkative new husband. This story revolves around my uncle's retaliation, where he took away everything from his wife, including her status, custody of the children, the family dog, and money. Let me tell you the tale. Initially, my uncle and his wife had a strong relationship, doing everything together. She was a good mother, but relied on my uncle for financial support. While he was the breadwinner, she stayed at home, engaging in extramarital affairs and looking after their children, aged 6 and 12. Quite the loving and caring wife, right? For some context, my other uncle had passed away, and naturally, my uncle was in mourning for a few months. During this period, he sought love and comfort, choosing to abstain from closeness for a while to grieve properly. However, his wife seemed utterly indifferent. She would give him a perfunctory kiss and a quick hug, then carry on with her activities, like cooking and cleaning. We sensed that something was amiss, so we asked him about her distant behavior, and his response was always, "Everyone copes with grief differently." As it turns out, her way of grieving involved having an affair with another man, a close family friend, no less. During the time of his brother's passing, their house received many visitors, especially this family friend they had known for a long time. He would drop by with his child, providing a chance for the kids to play while the adults chatted. Initially, my uncle didn't think much of it, or the frequency of these visits, even when they occurred during the daytime. He believed it was a simple drop-off for his son where the kids could have some fun. That was until his little boy, who is my uncle's child, drew a picture he wanted to share with his dad. My young cousin called it a secret, and my mom mentioned that she and our family friend were playing a new game that only they could enjoy. This immediately made my uncle start suspecting something was amiss. However, he never imagined his wife would cheat on him, especially since he was still grieving. In fact, we were all shocked because this woman always seemed very proper and polished, with a tidy home, good manners, stylish clothes, and a haughty demeanor. Then, his son retrieved a crumpled piece of paper he had hidden under his bed and displayed it to my uncle. He mentioned that he got it from the trash after his mom tossed it. It turned out to be a picture. He was told that his mom had instructed him not to draw her and the family friend anymore because it's a secret game that nobody else should be aware of. But my uncle's son felt upset about this, so he went to get his drawing back. He believed that his dad would definitely appreciate his artwork and give him praise for it. After some clarity, it seems the drawing depicted a family friend being close with the mom. My uncle snapped a photo of the sketch, visibly upset as he grasped the situation. He noted down all his son's comments about the drawing. He questioned when and where these events with the mom took place. Apparently, she acted when she believed the children were occupied. She'd do this when they were outside, ensuring she locked the doors, leaving the kids alone briefly. He also discovered that the older children had a game where they'd watch the adults being close. They'd distract the younger ones, making it seem like everyone was still outside. The kids would alternate watching the family friend and my uncle's wife, just being curious. All this from a woman who seemed so high and mighty. When my uncle confronted her and asked why, her shocking response was, "You didn't fulfill my needs, so I searched elsewhere." She also mentioned, "I deserved it since you weren't meeting my needs or looking out for me." The kids had to witness all that mess. She left them alone out of selfishness for a short while. While he was grieving his brother, she was cheating. She boldly said it was his fault, arguing that as a wife she had desires and emotional needs, and that feeling cherished was vital for someone like her. Additionally, the family friend defended her, saying my uncle should have been more attentive to her. It's hard to fathom someone feeling right about cheating, especially when it breaks up a family. A few months later, they separated. They co-parent their kids and dog, and she marries the man she had an affair with. She moved on from my uncle to another man. Despite everything, he tried to move past it, forgave her, prayed for her, and never said anything negative about her. My uncle always supported her, ensuring she had all she wanted. Even after her betrayal, he aimed for peace and forgiveness. However, that wasn't the final chapter. He made her pay for her actions and ensured the family friend faced consequences too. He turned their worlds upside down, and honestly, it felt good to see, even for us. Then she reached out wanting the kids to visit. She later sent messages saying she missed him. He finally realized what she was up to and her intentions. She wanted to reconnect with him, even if it meant betraying her new husband. So she continued to send him suggestive messages about missing their bedtimes. He took advantage of her feelings, tricking her into sending many messages and videos, which he then shared with her new husband. All this happened while they were trying to start a family. Now, this housewife would get a reality check. They both got a taste of their own medicine. Ultimately, she had a pattern of cheating. The family friend, who once supported her infidelity and later married her, got to experience what my uncle went through. He got what he deserved for aiding her infidelity and justifying her actions. Now he knows how it feels to be on the receiving end. When her new husband left her, she struggled to care for the kids. The laws in our country are peculiar, and she had also thoughtlessly signed a prenuptial agreement. She found herself without a home, unable to support her kids, lacking work experience, and without any fancy clothes or jewelry to maintain her lavish lifestyle. She desperately sought shelter and wanted to see her kids, but eventually, she vanished without a trace. So he got full custody of both the kids and the dog. It worked out for the best for everyone, except for those who betrayed trust.
All right, that was a fun story. Now let's move on to another exciting one. Stay tuned and let's dive in.
Story 3. I've been in a relationship with my wife for 14 years. When we first got together, she had one rule. If you cheat, I'm leaving. She shared a traumatic story from her past when her dad stabbed her mom 17 times when she was 16 because he suspected her of cheating. This September marked our 10th anniversary. In November, I went hunting with family, and when I returned, I realized that my Facebook account had been hacked. As I tried to reset my password, I noticed a switch account option. Surprisingly, my wife's account was listed, which struck me as odd since I had never known her login credentials. This made me suspicious of her faithfulness, so I attempted to switch accounts to investigate further. But before I reveal what I discovered, let's rewind to 10 years ago. Back then, I wasn't entirely satisfied with our relationship. When I relocated her from Colorado to North Dakota, she warned me that the frequency of our drive might decrease. I was okay with that, assuming it would be a couple of times a week at most. However, it ended up being a month between encounters, then 2 months, and so on. About 9.5 years ago, her phone started acting up and she asked for my help. While I was trying to fix the issue, a notification popped up that said, "I miss the taste of EI," which strongly implied a romantic connection with someone else. I confronted her and she dismissed it, claiming that the person just talks that way. Naively, I believed her, even though it was a glaringly obvious red flag. She promised to cut ties with this person and I moved on. She never received proper therapy or support after witnessing her mom's tragic death, and I did my best to help her heal. Initially, she told me that I was quite high on her list of past partners when we were in a long-distance texting relationship, estimating it to be around 60 or 70 people. However, she later couldn't recall the exact number. She had a history of reckless behavior, including using various substances and engaging in closeness with another girl, which were additional red flags that I won't dwell on. I also spent a significant amount of money paying off her overdue medical bills, and my mother contributed financially to support us. After that initial message incident, our relationship seemed to return to a more normal state. She introduced me to marijuana to help with my generalized anxiety disorder. Our relationship was far from ideal, and I was well aware of it. I wasn't getting the love I desired, with sometimes as long as 6 months in between, so I stopped contributing around the house. I thought if my needs weren't being met, I wouldn't fulfill her wants either. We both foolishly believed that getting married would somehow fix things, and looking back, I feel like a complete fool. We had to do a courthouse wedding and a brief out-of-town trip for a honeymoon because we were tight on money, especially after my parents lost their house due to a flood in our hometown that same year. We were also smoking a lot, which drained our finances, and we couldn't ask my parents for help given their situation. Our relationship continued on its troubled path, but eventually, we had closeness, and we noticed that one side of her body felt larger and firmer than the other. She went for a mammogram and received the devastating news that she had stage 3 breast cancer. The battle began, and for a while, things improved. I attended every medical appointment, as did my mom and her aunt, who had legal guardianship before she moved to Colorado. After a year and a half of undergoing chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and a double mastectomy, she successfully defeated the cancer. My mom generously covered a lot of the medical bills as an expression of love and support. Unfortunately, I didn't realize it at the time, but my wife was taking advantage of this situation. I never allowed myself to see the negative aspects of her behavior. We decided to relocate to the capital city where she received her treatment. I moved into my cousin's spare room and stayed there from Sunday night through Friday night each week. I was unaware of what was happening during those weeks and months, and I know I'll never find out the full story. After battling cancer, our bed life took a hit. It became infrequent, with periods ranging from every other year to a year and a half in between. Fast forward to today, we have our own house, and we saw it as a fresh start without marijuana, which I had become reliant on to manage my anxiety, probably why I didn't notice the major issues in our relationship. During my hunting trip, I decided to check her Facebook, where she was still friends with the guy she'd been talking to. The top unread message was from him, and it simply said, "I miss the taste of you." So I opened it and found messages from the past 2 weeks. She must have been deleting everything after the first time. It started with affectionate greetings like "Love, how are you?" with hearts and kisses, and then escalated with him suggesting she should be more daring. 2 days later, she mentioned, "I wish you were in town. C is gone hunting this weekend, and I have the place to myself." I called her to confront her about this during my lunch break at work because I was deeply troubled. She claimed she had already told me they had kissed, but she hadn't. I argued that if she had, we would have had problems long ago. After work, I asked her how I could ever trust her again, and her immediate response was, "We're done." I agreed, saying she was right. We didn't communicate much for the rest of that week. Eventually, I decided I could move forward if she was honest with me. However, when I asked for the truth about what happened after seeing the first message, I received 4 different versions of events. So while I was trying to salvage our relationship, I began snooping around. I discovered various things, including a vape, a bag of marijuana on one occasion, and a video from October where she was flirting, winking, and blowing a kiss, but claimed it was sent to her best friend because she wanted to feel attractive. Right. I realized I couldn't tolerate the lies any longer, but I continued to snoop. One night I noticed her smartwatch, and I realized I could access her text messages. I found explicit photos sent from her to a female coworker. The coworker asked if my wife wanted to engage in a certain activity, and my wife responded affirmatively. But she mentioned that they couldn't because of snow plowing in her alley and laziness on my part. I'm not sure why I still have feelings about all of this, but I decided to confront her once more. I woke her up and asked her if she still wanted to be involved in a certain activity, offering my assistance. She panicked and reached for her phone, thinking I had taken it to check her messages. I then inquired about the duration of her relationship with girl, as we recently had love 3 times in 2 days, and she had developed a bacterial infection afterward. She initially denied it, but later admitted it had been going on for a while, claiming she was trying to work up the courage to tell me. I started individual counseling. My anxiety has been a constant issue, and my doctor is attempting to adjust my medications, but it's complicated by the fact that my anxiety is psychosomatic. This means I can stress myself into vomiting and then worry about having vomited, leading to more stress and more vomiting. She tried to explain that the messages were part of a plot to retaliate against my snooping, but I pointed out that using someone's mental health issues against them is a terrible thing to do. I found myself compelled to check her smartwatch repeatedly, despite constantly telling myself that it shouldn't matter anymore, and I should just proceed with the long overdue divorce and stop caring. Clearly, I still cared enough to keep playing this foolish game of searching for new discoveries. Then I came across messages from the other woman telling my wife that they had only agreed to be friends with benefits and that they didn't owe each other anything. WW was being described as too demanding, and OW wasn't interested in a relationship until after the divorce. I hadn't told WW about this until tonight when I decided it was finally time to express my feelings about her. I checked her smartwatch first and saw that WW had responded, saying she wouldn't ask for anything anymore, but would still like to get marijuana cartridges from OW. She also mentioned that she still loved her, but didn't want to be with someone who only wanted her for love. I woke her up and asked if she planned to go out for her birthday on Sunday. She said no. I then asked if it was because her girlfriend had broken up with her. She got angry, but I didn't care. She denied it, but I knew the truth and started reading her messages aloud, which quickly silenced her. I told her she was repulsive and questioned why she stayed with me if I was such a joke. Before she could answer, I reminded her that my mom and I had financially supported her entirely. She always got what she wanted, and as long as she was happy, nothing else mattered, not even me. I reiterated that she was a repugnant and terrible person and walked away. I returned briefly to clarify that my disgust was not about her orientation, but about how she had treated me over the past 10 years. I had taken care of her for so long and so diligently that I had never stopped to consider if I was happy myself. I'm devastated, unable to eat or sleep, and I feel discarded like trash. It almost feels like she was just using me as a means to get pills, as OM was a small-time dealer. OW had recently informed her that WW could still come over to smoke and de-stress. Although everyone says it's not my fault, I can't help but feel somehow responsible, even after realizing how messed up she truly is. I feel lost, and my counselor hasn't been much help in the 4 weekly sessions we've had so far. My friends are trying to support me by gaming with me and doing what they can, but there are many nights when I don't even want to wake up because it feels too overwhelming. On a brighter note, I've made progress on filling out divorce papers, and a contractor is coming tomorrow to estimate the cost of fixing up the house for sale. The realtor will be visiting next weekend. I know I won't start healing until I'm away from her, but attempting to keep things civil and out of court is taking a toll on me. Fortunately, we never had the children I had wanted. I apologize for the lengthy text. It's difficult to unpack 10 years of baggage in just a few lines. Thank you for taking the time to read some or all of my post. I'm really seeking advice on how to move forward. I saw a suggestion in another thread about getting involved with someone else to help get over someone. But my vows meant a lot to me, unlike my exes, and I won't take them lightly. Nevertheless, I do feel the need to take some positive steps. My friend is likely to join a gym with me so I won't have to go alone, even though I'm not typically a gym person. Here's an update. The contractor came today, and we ended up having a good conversation. He seemed sincere. I explained my urgency and budget constraints to him, along with what I hope to accomplish with the money I have. He mentioned using some materials he already has for the kitchen floor at a reasonable cost. For the basement bedroom that needs new carpet, he's planning to install tiles at just the labor cost. He even offered to replace a window just because he has a spare one. And they're nice. He mentioned that he might donate some of his time if necessary, but assured me he'd get the work done so we can list the property and I can move on to heal. He'll provide a price estimate after taking measurements and plans to begin next week. He also suggested a lower rate if he could involve a trainee, given the scope of work I need. I told him the cost didn't matter, and I could assist if needed to save some money. There are certain tasks related to this old property that I'm not familiar with, and I don't want to open a can of worms I can't handle. Interestingly, she has stopped leaving her smartwatch out, so I'm not sure if it's related to what I said or just a coincidence. But instead of feeling anxious just being in the same house as her, I currently have no anxiety, at least for tonight. I have plans for tomorrow. There are a few things I need to pick up, but I'll be spending time with my friend. He mentioned that his wife will be busy with the kids, so I suggested that I come over and we can watch movies together. I simply need to be out of the house for a while. Otherwise, I'd be upstairs watching TV with her.